Hi, today we are going to be discussing division of labor. So, what exactly is division of labor? To understand that, we need to understand what exactly is labor. Any amount of work that you're doing for some purpose is going to be labor. If you're getting paid for it in any form, be it um, say anything that you desire, affection, money, compensation, whatever it is, it's labor. And what exactly is division of labor? So if you're going to be dividing the labor based on and giving a certain kind of labor to certain people, that's called division of labor. For example, if say you are better at say riding a horse, which is a very specialized particular activity, then it would be better for you to be a horse rider than for me. If I don't know how to ride a horse, I'll probably fall off it, right? So that's one example, a very specific example, but an example. So how exactly does this happen, right? So in the society, your skill set, your age, your intellect, your gender, skill, all of this together defines and decides division of labor. So now there's a division of economic labor. So what that means is that the division is divided based on your economic interests, based on the interests of the society, based on what roles are required, and together all of it serves the economic growth of the country. So for example, say if a barber is cutting the hair, a person is making a dress, a person is working in some other place, so a person is cooking food, all of them together are required. They all have their own purpose in the society. Now that is one way, which is a way in which that none of the people get exploited, right? Because everyone is getting their fair compensation. Then there's division of social labor, which is based on class, status, and stratification. So what that means is, if um, so what that means is, so as we learned about stratification in the previous chapter, when this happens, is that when you're dividing labor like that, people of doing a particular set of labor might have more status, more stature in the society compared to other people doing different work, right? It decides their class, and maybe even certain people who are working in a special industry might be able to do that particular form of labor. Other people might not be given entry to that. All of these factors together can also lead to stratification when there's a division of social labor. Now, in this current time period, what is one industry that is really booming in India? That industry will be the IT industry. What is the IT industry? It is the computer science industry, the information technology industry, right? And it's being used everywhere. So what that allows is, even in that field, you have multiple specializations, right? So for example, in IT industry, it's being used everywhere. And if in doctors also, they will have different doctors for different types of diseases. You will have different computer technicians for different IT issues. Everyone has a specific purpose, even in one form of labor. Say my particular form of labor is computer science, but my specialization might be something like data science. So I might be good at only data science related stuff, or I could be a doctor, and I could be a kids doctor. So what that means is that I only specialize in dealing with the ailments, the diseases of kids. So that is specialization. How do we reach that specialization? By your interest, by studying, by pursuing that, based on on your talent, based on your interest, based on access to resources also, all of that together. And when you develop a specialization, you're able to get more monetization out of it. So what I mean by monetization is that you're able to earn more profit out of it, because you're doing something unique. You're providing a special purpose a special service that other people might not be giving, right? So that is one way. All of this together can lead to an inequality. There's an inequality associated with in employment and labor. So how do we reach the conclusion that there's an inequality? Equal pay for equal labor is the motto. If two people are doing the same amount of labor and they're not getting the same amount of returns, then there's an inequality there, right? This inequality can be a lot of factors. It can be because of gender, caste, religion, region, all of these factors. How so? So if it is very common, there's a wage gap in the industry. I talked about it in the previous video as well about stratification. So women doing the same amount of labor, equal labor, are not, as men, are not paid the equal wage. That is one way of inequality. Other can be between educated and uneducated labor, right? So for instance, if I'm working as in an intellectual job, say for instance, if I was a doctor, if I'm working 10 hours a day, I'm putting 10 hours worth of labor in it. Say X amount of effort has gone into it. Now another person, say if he's a sweeper, he's also putting in the same amount of effort. We're not going to go by hours, I'm just going to go by effort. Maybe it took him say 11 hours to put in that same amount of effort, labor, but he's putting that labor in, so they should be paid the same, right? But our society is valuing one form of labor much more than the other form of labor. So there is an inherent inequality to it. And since there's a stratification, there are levels to how we treat human beings. You can move up a ladder, you can move up in the levels scale if you get a better paying job. So you're improving your status in the society through your labor. Even if you were putting in the same amount of effort, if you start putting that same amount of effort in a different job for which the compensation might be higher, you might get a better pay for it. You might move up in the social ladder. So that there's an inequality, right? So even the type of job that you do matter. We notice it that in our society people want all the kids to pursue science or math because they lead to better paying jobs, right? They don't allow kids to pursue their passion. All of this is result of the inequality that is there in the labor sector. Now, this was about inequality. Now we have to go to the different kinds of labor that there are. There are types in labor also. So first we'll discuss labor that is with pay and labor that is without pay. So that is quite self-explanatory. So for labor that is with pay, what that means is that you're going to get compensation for it. Compensation can be in any forms. I do not mean money in particular. I work for a person for say 10 hours, and he promises that for doing this job for him, for for repairing his car or something, he's going to buy me food, give me 5 kgs of rice. So that is labor with pay because I'm getting some compensation for it, right? Some people might even be working for it, say any form of even barter system, right? All that is with pay. Any compensation is with pay. Now without pay is when you're working with no returns. You're not getting anything out of it. Maybe for your peace of mind you're working, maybe because it's your family, that's why you're working it. There is an example in every home for that. Our mothers, right? They cook for us, they clean our clothes, they clean the house, and all of us enjoy the benefits, and they're not getting any payment for it, right? They're not getting any days off, they're not getting any retirement fund from it. It's all without pay. We're not telling them, okay, ma, if you clean my room, I'm going to give you 600 rupees. We're not doing that, right? That is without pay. Then this is one way of classifying labor. The other possible classification is on the basis of legal provisions. So what that means is that there are two sectors, organized sector and unorganized sector. So we can already guess which one will have legal provisions just by the name. So in the organized sector, we have some legal provisions in place put by the government that if you work for this many hours, you should get this much money. If you are working for this, your base compensation should be this. There will be a health insurance that the employer will have to provide. What that means is that if you get hurt while doing the job, the employer will have to compensate you, will have to give you some money or some benefits because of the injury caused, or if you get sick in general also. That is some health benefits that are associated with some jobs. There are also a retirement fund that some jobs give, in which they give you funds for retirement. For example, in government jobs only, you get pension, you get money for housing compensation. Sometimes you get a driver or maybe a government car and stuff like that, and compensate an allowance for petrol. All of that stuff you might get. So there are some legal provisions in place. In the unorganized sector, there are no rules, right? Or then these are the type of small jobs that people do. For example, like daily wage workers. So if there is a worker who's working on a construction site on a day-to-day basis, so he's been told that you're going to earn 50 rupees. Now the person who's handling the construction site might make him work 15 hours a day, but he'll have to work for just 50 rupees because they're going to throw him out. They're going to find someone else. There will be no pension scheme. If he gets hurt on the job, then it's his problem. They are not going to pay for it. They're going to just find someone else. People who do small jobs, for example, say the person who's selling pani puri or selling groceries on the streets, selling vegetables on the street. All this is unorganized sector. They don't have any legal provisions that are governing them. They're also not, you don't have to ask the government to set up a stall. You can just buy a stall, get some supplies, and you're good to go. But in the organized sector, you have to get some permissions before you can set up your company and all. So that is one other big difference. Also, the unorganized sector does not pay a lot of taxes. Arguably, they don't pay any taxes. So that is one more thing. That's why they're not governed by legal provisions also. Because these are usually smaller jobs. Smaller in terms of the amount of revenue that they generate. So that is the difference between the organized and unorganized sector. What is very surprising is that in India, 90% of the workers that are employed are in the unorganized sector, right? And when you have so many people employed in the unorganized sector and you don't have any legal norms, there will obviously be some problems associated with it. So one major problem is migration. People often have to change their cities, move to the city from the villages, move to the cities to get better work, because these are on a day-to-day basis. They're not very common in the cities, so they have to keep migrating. And once they migrate, they lose all forms of security. They are in a new city, they have nowhere to go, they have no contacts, so they lose social security also. They might have some land in the village that they don't have anymore. They don't have any social security, is that they don't get any benefits, right? Like housing, health, all that we discussed. So in terms of a safety net, they don't have anything for them to fall back on if something goes wrong. There is also no legal framework that we've already discussed, right? So there's no provident fund also. They might work 10 years as a laborer, as a general daily wage worker, and after 60, when they can't work every day, they won't have any source of income left. You won't save a lot if you're just earning the bare minimum every day. And since there are no rules, you can employ child labor. So many small kids get employed in these places, and they don't have access to education. They're worked for non-stop hours, which is very, very harmful for them at a growing age. And they are put in life-threatening situations without any regard for their safety. Also, the physical and mental exploitation that happens in this workplace is also one problem. Problems such as mental exploitation, sexual exploitation, all of this is very, very common in the unorganized sector, because there is no record of the people working there. So if anything happens to them, no one is accountable for it, right? So there is literally no form of safety and no form of accountability in the unorganized sector. Yet 90% of our population is employed there because of no other option. So with this, we've concluded our discussion on labor. I hope you had a nice time and you took away something from the discussion.